The birth of Europe. In the Middle Ages, a new civilization took shape on the European continent. From the collision of empires and beliefs, of kings and nobles, faith and war, learning and violence, emerged the foundations of the modern world. This is the story of how Europe was born. Romans, Christians, barbarians. In the first centuries of the Common Era, the Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean world. Under the Pax Romana, its citizens enjoyed relative peace, prosperity, and security. Roads, cities, laws, and centralized governance bound together a vast and diverse population. At the empire's eastern edge, a new faith appeared: Christianity. What began as a small Jewish movement slowly spread across the pagan Roman world. By the 4th century, emperors themselves embraced it, transforming Christianity into the empire's official religion. But Rome's strength was fading. Inflation, plague, famine, and constant warfare strained its institutions. Governing such an enormous empire from a single center became impossible. In 395 CE, it was divided. A Western empire ruled from Rome, and an Eastern empire governed from Constantinople. The East remained wealthy, urban, and resilient. The West did not. Beyond the empire's borders, Germanic peoples were on the move. Pressed by population shifts and conflict, they pushed against Roman frontiers. At first, admitted as settlers and allies, they eventually crossed the borders in force. Roman authority collapsed as new kingdoms rose on its ruins. In 476 CE, the barbarian leader Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The Western Roman Empire was finished. The so-called Dark Ages had begun. From the fusion of Roman legacy, Christian belief, and barbarian power, medieval Europe emerged. Germanic kingdoms. By 500 CE, Western Europe was divided among new barbarian kingdoms. Roman and Germanic elites merged, adopting Christianity and ruling over largely rural populations. The most powerful realms were those of the Ostrogoths in Italy, the Visigoths in Spain, and the Franks in Gaul. But these states lacked the foundations of Roman governance. Cities emptied or fell into ruin. Roads decayed. Coinage disappeared. Literacy collapsed. Without trade or taxation, professional armies vanished. Violence became constant. Western Europe fragmented, politically, economically, and linguistically, becoming a patchwork of isolated regions. Compared to its neighbors, it was weak and impoverished. Heirs of Rome. In the 6th century, Byzantine Emperor Justinian I attempted to restore Roman unity. His armies reclaimed Italy, but the victory was short-lived. New invaders, the Lombards, swept in, and the Byzantines accepted that the split between East and West was permanent. Soon, an even greater division emerged. In the 7th century, Arab armies surged out of Arabia, conquering the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. A vast Islamic caliphate replaced Roman rule across much of the Mediterranean. Where once there had been one civilization, there were now three: Islamic, Byzantine, and Western European. In the 8th century, the caliphate advanced into Europe. Muslim armies crushed the Visigothic kingdom in Spain and raided deep into Frankish lands. But in 732, at the Battle of Tours, the Frankish leader Charles Martel halted their advance. His victory gave rise to a dynasty that would reshape Europe, the Carolingians. The Carolingian moment. Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, seized the Frankish throne and allied himself with the papacy, granting the Pope territorial independence in Italy. Pepin's son, Charlemagne, expanded this alliance into an empire. Through decades of warfare, he united much of Western Christendom. In 800 CE, Pope Leo III crowned him Emperor of the Romans. For the first time since Rome's fall, the West had an emperor again. Charlemagne's empire sparked a cultural revival. Learning, administration, and Christian identity were strengthened. The idea of a unified Christian Europe, ruled by a single emperor, was reborn. But the foundations were fragile. Fragmentation and invasion. After Charlemagne's death, his empire quickly unraveled. Lacking infrastructure, wealth, and bureaucracy, centralized rule collapsed. In 843, his grandsons divided the empire in the Treaty of Verdun. What remained fractured further under relentless attack. Vikings raided from the north, sailing rivers deep into Europe. Magyars struck from the east, devastating undefended settlements. Muslim raiders attacked from the south. Europe was under siege. Feudal Europe. As kings lost authority, local lords rose to power. Castles spread across the landscape, becoming centers of coercion and control. Peasants were bound to the land, forced to support a warrior elite. Military innovation transformed society. Cavalry replaced infantry as the dominant force, and warfare became the profession of nobles. Power rested on land, loyalty, and violence. This system, feudalism, created a web of personal obligations between lords and vassals. Kings were often the weakest players in their own realms. A turn of fortune. By the 10th century, the tide began to turn. Climate improved, agriculture expanded, invasion subsided as Vikings and Hungarians settled and converted to Christianity. New kingdoms stabilized. England was unified under Anglo-Saxon kings. In France, Norman settlers became loyal subjects. In Germany, Otto the Great defeated the Magyars and revived the imperial title in 962, founding what became known as the Holy Roman Empire. After centuries of chaos, Europe was stabilizing. Growth and expansion. Around the year 1000, Europe entered an era of dramatic growth. Agricultural innovation increased food production, fueling population expansion. Forests were cleared, towns multiplied, trade revived, cities grew wealthy and independent. A new merchant class emerged, especially in Italy, where Mediterranean commerce flourished. Art, architecture, education, and learning blossomed. Universities were founded, ancient texts were rediscovered. Europe was not only growing inward, but pushing outward. Conquest and crusade. European elites expanded their influence across the continent. Normans conquered England and southern Italy. Christian kingdoms pushed south in Iberia. Germans settled lands in Eastern Europe. Beyond Europe, the Crusades carried Christian armies into the Eastern Mediterranean. Though ultimately unsuccessful, they revealed the growing ambition and power of the Western Church. The Church Ascendant. Once weak and fragmented, the medieval church transformed itself. Reformers sought independence from kings and nobles, building a centralized papal monarchy. Popes clashed with emperors over authority. Though conflicts were fierce, the papacy emerged dominant. By the 12th century, it was the most powerful institution in Europe. Kings took notice and followed its example. Kings and states. Monarchs gradually consolidated power. In England, France, and Spain, stronger centralized states emerged. Elsewhere, such as in Germany and Italy, fragmentation persisted. Europe prospered until catastrophe struck. The Black Death. In 1347, the Black Death swept across Europe. Within years, 1/3 of the population was dead. Entire villages vanished. Yet from devastation came transformation. Labor shortages empowered peasants. Wages rose, revolts erupted, innovation accelerated. A new renaissance emerged, especially in Italy, reviving classical knowledge and redefining humanity's place in the world. War and the modern state. Gunpowder ended the age of knights. Cannons shattered castles. Infantry replaced cavalry. Only kings could afford modern armies, and with them they built sovereign states. Nobles became administrators, authority centralized. England, France, and Spain emerged as early nation-states. The end of the Middle Ages. By 1500, Europe turned outward. Portuguese ships reached Asia. Spanish explorers crossed the Atlantic. Columbus' voyage in 1492 symbolized a new era. The Middle Ages were over. Europe, forged through collapse and renewal, was ready to reshape the world.